Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I went down to the LeSueur swap meet today, LeSueur, Minnesota, and I got myself geared up for tractor season. I spent, I don't know, about 6 hours down there today. It was really wet and really muddy. This April has been just unforgiving as far as yucky weather, and so I didn't spend as long as I wanted to down there. It was my first time down there. I did find one little nugget that was nice. I found the belt pulley for the 335 project that I've been working on. Unfortunately, I didn't find the drive, but I did find the pulley, so we're one step closer there. But today, we're going to be working on carburetors. So on the bench, I've got a couple of them, and I'll run you through what we got going on. What I've got on the bench are four Marvell Schebler carburetors, and it's four separate projects. Project number one is this one is going on my 445. This one came off my 445. I rebuilt this one last fall, and I did everything except painted it, so I just got it freshly painted, and I'm getting it ready to put on the tractor along with a new sediment bulb. This one, the float started to stick last year, and it was just time to get it cleaned up and redone. So because I have one on the shelf, I'm able to rebuild this one, put this one on the tractor, and now I'll tear this one down and rebuild it and put it back on the shelf so that I'm ready to go. That's actually project number 3. So project 1, get this on the tractor. Project 2 is tearing down, cleaning up, and rebuilding this one that is off my 335 project, which I will be posting a video shortly that just kind of runs you through where I'm at with that project to date, and it's going to be mostly pictures because that's all that I have. We're going to get this one completely rebuilt and do most of that on camera so that you can see the process. And then project number 4 is this carburetor, which is off my Z. This one actually got rebuilt not too long ago, but again, I'm having issues with the float sticking. So I'm going to replace those components. I'm going to put a new float in it, and that's about as much as I'm going to do with this one. Unfortunately, I don't have a second carburetor on the shelf, which is something I plan on doing in the future, just because it's so easy to have one clean, ready to go, that I can just swap out and hopefully avoid some of the problems. The carburetor for the 445 is the bigger bowl, and I can kind of show you the difference here, but you can see 335 is a little bit smaller. It's got a smaller bowl. The air intake is a little bit smaller, and there's a couple other differences that you'll see as we get into it. Now, what I'm doing with the 335 and the 445 is I'm putting a little gas shutoff right behind the carburetor, and the reason I'm doing that, even though there's one on the sediment bulb, is because a lot of times once you get the sediment bulb in and you get the front panel put back on, you really can't get at this. It's really difficult to reach in there and turn this on or shut it off or empty the sediment bulb, which caused a lot of problems for a lot of people with these tractors, and a lot of guys took the roundabout and made a shortcut to get in there, and they cut away steel to do it. And I've got an example of that I'll show you. Okay, so because that sediment bulb was tucked up behind these big fenders, there was no accessibility to both turning on or shutting off the gas or emptying out the sediment bowl. And so what would happen a lot of times is these guys would make their own accessibility point. So you can see on this one, somebody has cut out this whole bottom all the way across, as opposed to mine, you can see that bottom flare runs all the way across. And this is actually one of the nicer jobs that I've seen done with this, and in most cases I just see a big torch mark. They just cut a box out of the side so they can reach in. They just didn't care. So that's why I like to put shutoffs right on the carburetor, so I can at least shut the flow of fuel off and keep that from sitting inside the bowl of the carburetor. Some of the high points as I take it apart. I'll talk a little more in depth as we put it back together, but by no means am I a pro at this, so I'll just kind of let my actions speak for themselves. In each case, you can see that I've purchased rebuild kits. Some are a little better than others. The one for the 445 has everything. It has the choke. It's got it's got all the components to completely replace everything. The butterfly valve, it's all there. So that one's getting a very extensive build-up plus a float. 335, pretty much the same deal, other than I may have to salvage the butterfly valve and the choke valve, because the kit that I bought didn't come with them. So we'll see how bad they are when we get into it, although I'm guessing it's going to be relatively bad. Everything on this tractor has been a nightmare. And then again for the Z, I am going to put a new float in it, but then all I'm really going to do is put in a new float valve and change the gaskets, because everything else you can kind of see inside. The butterfly valve, the choke is a little bit used, but not horrible, but everything else looks pretty good. Really hoping to see a screen behind this. It'd be really nice if that fitting had a screen behind it. The one we're putting back in does have a screen behind it. Should look something like that. I'm guessing this one doesn't. And I would be correct. Ugh. And next, the needle. And this goes all the way through down into the bottom bowl, so this has got to get removed before we can split it apart. That is definitely not the right spring for the idler tensioner. That has been replaced. Yummy. Oh, there goes my... Now, with your throttle flap, you got to remember that it's beveled in a specific direction. So when you go to put it back in, it's meant to only flap one way and will only seal one way. So you got to make sure you put it back in the same way. And the same with the Venturi. It's extremely important that that goes back in the same way it came out. That's extremely important. That is what makes the tractor run. Without that, it doesn't run. Okay, both halves are pretty well stripped down, other than we've got to get these little bushings out yet so that those can get replaced. Alright, got all the bushings out, and the top and bottom are completely stripped down, and they're ready for a soak. So we're going to get these all cleaned up. The next time that you see them, they will be looking like they're brand new. Okay everybody, as promised, there is our cleaned up carb, which looks much better. So we got all the ports cleaned out, make sure everything was open, and we're ready to do the reassemble. Here is everything laid out old component with the new component. This rebuild kit is from Steiner Tractor, and this is their top kit. They have 3 different kits. I can't remember what they're called, but I think this is the top of the line kit. You can see I already did a little bit of Prairie Gold spraying. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and knock this back together. Okay, we're going to start with the butterflies, both the choke and the throttle. Unfortunately, the kit did not come with new butterflies, so we got these cleaned up. And again, as I mentioned when we took it apart, we have to be very careful to make sure that we put them back in the correct orientation, because there is a bevel that matches a bevel on the inside of the carb throat. And luckily we've got these over here for reference if we need them. So I'm going to go ahead and put the choke in first. Okay, so the choke, there is a little nylon sleeve for this side that gets put in. Okay. And then there's a brass retainer that holds that in. Oops. No, it's not that long. This one is that long. I don't know. I still think that goes in there. This is this guy. Better. Okay. Nice part is it gets painted again, so if I scuff it or whatever, this is all going to get another coat of paint. It's just that a lot of this stuff back here is hard to get, so splashing a little bit on before I put it together makes a big help. Okay, that goes through. Oops, too far. The butterfly actually acts as a retainer on each side of this to keep that from sliding in and out. In this case, on the choke, the flap goes to the back and to the bottom. All right, choke is complete. Got all the components put back together on it. Now we will do the throttle body. The throttle has a plug. It goes in on this end. All right. I'll try to make sure I don't forget anything this time so I don't have to take it back apart. No, we're good. Okay. And again, we gotta make sure that this goes the right direction. There's a bevel and a bevel. On the choke. Yeah, so the carb that I took off my Z, I noticed that when you release the choke, it is sliding to the side and lifting up, which is like quarter choking it back the other direction. I originally thought my float was the problem with this, but that could also be part of my problem. So I just wanted to make sure on this one, since I used the same choke arm, I didn't get that in the kit, that locks in tight, but it does. Okay, I'm going to put the plug back in the bottom. Okay, so we're just working our way up the tray. We don't need these four anymore, they were replaced. Put that in the discard pile. This gasket and washer were replaced. We're not using this spring, we used a different one. And then all of these copper retainers were everything that I punched out. So all of that is discarded. Okay. Next we're going to put the main jet back in. Okay. With that, the bottom of the bowl is done, aside from the gasket. Okay, we're gonna put that little jet back in. Okay. We're going to put the venturi back in. And then we're going to work on float components. Okay, gasket goes on the needle seat. And you can thread that in. Gasket doesn't want to sit in there. There we go. There we go. It's broken. Okay, that's in. Actually, I'm guessing that has to go on first. But a float retainer that the old one didn't have, or didn't at least have in anymore. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Sink the lock. And the new pin. There we go. That looks nice. Okay, I gotta look at the book, but I'm pretty sure it's, you put the gasket on and then it's a 1/4 inch from the bottom of the float to the gasket is where you want that set at, and then to set it, if you need to, it's just a little bit of a bend. I'm not going to do it now until I get that gasket on and get a straight edge. And now that I think about it, gasket's got to go on before the float. So that'll have to come back off. But that's okay, because I got to find a straight edge first. Okay, got the gasket back on, got everything back together. Now, I've got a caliper set to 1/4 inch, and it says to measure from the gasket to the front of the float, and that should be at 1/4 inch. I am nowhere even close to 1/4 inch. So it states, take it off and bend it right here to achieve your 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me wait until I have it to put that back on. Okay. See how we did. Still have a long way to go. This side. Nope. This side. This side's actually a lot closer. It just needs a little bit further. This side needs a lot. I guess I can see it too. Okay, let's check that out. This side is just barely floating above the 1/4 inch. This side is still 1/8 of an inch away. Give it a good bend this time. Boy, it sure looks deformed compared to its brother there. Well, now we went too far on this side. This side we're, I think, about as close as I'm going to get it. Look at that. I think we got it. It lifts just slightly. Let's see if I can take that out without taking it off. There it is. That's what we're looking for. Okay, float set. Now we're going to put that retainer back on. check our pin. Looks good. Okay, with the float complete, gasket on, now we can go ahead and marry the two sides back together again.
You want that leather table for anything out here? Mom told me to ask you.
Nope.
Alright.
Okay. Now I'm going to seal up all the holes that are left, tape it up, and get it under a coat of primer yet tonight. And then after the paint and primer are dry, we'll put the last couple pieces on and call this project done. Alright, and through the magic of GoPro, here we are. Painting is completed, and we have just a couple of things left to add. We've got the throttle stop that we have to run in. We've got the idle adjuster. And we've got the power adjustment. This has a washer and a gasket. If you remember, that goes all the way down through the bottom bowl, assuming you get it lined up right. There we go. So the idle adjustment, we're going to run that all the way in. So we can feel that it is completely seated. Okay, and then we're going to back it off one full turn. There's one and a half turn. And we're going to do the same thing with the high-end power needle. We're going to run that down until we get fully seated, which is there. And we're going to go half, full, and I'm only going to go a quarter turn past that. And then the remainder of it we should be able to do and adjust it out once we get it on and running. And then if you remember when we took this out, I was hoping that there would have been a screen on it. There wasn't. So the new one has a screen. Run that in. That's the fuel inlet. And actually, we're going to put thread tape on it. Okay, so next we're going to run the fuel inlet in. Okay. Choke. Throttle. The only thing I have left is to get a small rivet to put the tag back on. And I got to get a reducer for my shutoff. And then this will be complete. Okay, so again, at the beginning of the video, we talked a little bit about the differences between the 445's carburetor and the 335 carburetor. Other than just the size comparison, the other differences are the 335 had a smaller engine, so it had a 165 cubic inch engine, 2.7 liter, and the 445 had a 206 cubic inch engine, and it was a 3.4 liter. So the bore and stroke were also different. The 335 had a 3.62 inch bore and a 4-inch stroke, and the 445 had a 3.625 inch bore but a 5-inch stroke. The 335 gave about 40 horsepower at 1600 RPM, and the 445 gave 45 horsepower at 1550 RPM. And then weight-wise, the 445 was about 700 pounds heavier off the assembly line. And then I've got a couple of pictures of side-by-side comparison, and also the front cast iron cross, just so that you can kind of see that there definitely are differences, even though they look very, very similar. But that's going to pretty much wrap it for the carb series. The next video that you're going to see from me is we're going to get into this Delco distributor, and there isn't much to it. We're just going to reassemble it. It's already been painted and ready to go, and then that will also go with the 335. Got a couple other little odds and ends left to finish up from when I originally stopped that project, and then we can get the rear end out of the shed and start back into it, and hopefully by the end of summer have it all pieced back together, have it running, and potentially start prepping it for paint. But again, I am going to put up a video that's got all of the background into what it was like when we found it, and where we're at to this point. So I hope you find this helpful, and if you like it, please subscribe to the channel, and we're just going to keep plugging along. Thank you.